Chris Taylor asks if by some national confusion over your virtual presidency you actually became commander-in-chief, and also that to ensure torture would not be abused, the Congress had passed a law saying the president could order enhanced interrogation techniques to be used on a captive only if the president personally volunteered to undergo the same technique for the same duration. And there's a little bit after that, but that's the gist of the point. I'm so glad you asked that question. When waterboarding became an issue back, I want to say around 2003 or 4, maybe just before the Iraq thing, but when they were waterboarding, I believe, this is my understanding, that there were only 3 people that were waterboarded. One of them was Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. Now, is waterboarding torture? I would not call it torture. And the reason I wouldn't call it torture is because I'd be willing to undergo waterboarding while I wouldn't be willing to undergo torture. If you want to cut my fingers off with a bolt cutter, no. You want to bash my teeth in with a rifle butt, no. You want to hang me by my wrists for 6 hours, just hanging so my shoulders come out of their joints? No. That's all torture, and I wouldn't be willing to undergo that. But our Special Forces guys are waterboarded, and this is the point I was trying to make, and I was talked out of it, probably wisely, although I don't know if I believe it was wisely or not. So here's the answer. I would agree with that policy. And I want to be crystal clear about this because it's so easy to make fun of, keyboard warriors. I would be willing to be waterboarded to make the point. I'd be willing to be waterboarded repeatedly to make the point because I have a pretty strong will when I put my mind to things. I want to be crystal clear about this. I am not for a second suggesting that I could withstand the waterboarding. I'm not for a second suggesting it wouldn't be awful. I'm not for a second suggesting that I wouldn't want to panic. It's not for a second suggesting that that it's pleasant or that it wouldn't be able to get any information that it wants out of me. I'm perfectly willing to admit that. In fact, I'm probably more susceptible to waterboarding than most people because I have a kind of a sensitive gag reaction when they put those molds in your teeth to take an impression of your teeth, which I had a bunch of done not too long ago, a couple years ago. That when some of that goop starts going back in the back of your throat, I kind of, panic almost, like, really. So I would say I'm particularly susceptible to the panic terror aspect of that. But I'm also good in emergencies, and I have the ability to have my willpower overwhelm my emotions. So just so we're crystal clear, I would, if it were coming down to making the point to save the country, yes. Look, let's just back up a step. I am not talking about waterboarding people to find out whether or not they're guilty. Because if you do that, there's a chance you could be waterboarding an innocent person. I'm not talking about, we should waterboard them to see if they're guilty. No. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed murdered 3,000 people. If he'd murdered 3 people or 1 person, he'd deserve the electric chair or a firing squad or the scaffold. So I don't care about at all. He's a mass murderer. He deserves to die. And I think it's the same can be said for the other people that were waterboarded. But let me get back to the specific question. So yes, under controlled circumstances with a doctor there in case I have a heart attack and all the rest of it, I would be willing to be waterboarded, fully understanding that this would be the most unpleasant experience of my life. Apparently, when they do it on friendlies, you hold a weight or something, and when you drop the weight, they stop. Look, this is really what I'm trying to say. Yes, and I know, and somebody said it's in your nose and not your mouth. I understand that, but I just wanted to suggest that I have a sensitivity towards my respiration. Let's put it that way. So let me be crystal clear. This is what I believe I would be able to do. I would be in position. They would start the waterboarding. I would go ahead and drop all this stuff, and I would sit bolt upright, and I would say that's the worst thing that ever happened to me, and then I would say, do it again. Because I can endure that kind of thing. I actually can. I wouldn't say I could do it for hours. I wouldn't say I could do it for days. I'm just saying I could do it 3 times, 4 times. And I wouldn't be willing to do that if somebody was talking about, we're going to knock your teeth in with a rifle butt, or we're going to cut your fingers off with a bolt cutter. I wouldn't be willing to say, yeah, cut another one, yeah, do it. No. So I don't think it's torture. And while I think this idea that the president have to be willing to undergo it is a bit extreme, I do think you can end the argument by saying, if we do this to our special forces guys to warn them and to, on some level, if not acclimate them, then at least let them know what to expect in the case that they are captured, then my point is, if this is something we do to our very best soldiers and they sign up for it willingly, then it's not, in my mind, torture. And there's your answer. So while I don't think necessarily that the president has to undergo it, I think if our soldiers, our special forces soldiers, are volunteering to undergo it, and that the people who are training them think it's a necessary part of their training, I think that's all the answer I really need, frankly. So hopefully that answered it for you.